the human soul weighs exactly 21 grams. It's a strange clinical number, isn't it? I've spent my life as a nurse in the ICU, surrounded by the hum of ventilators and the flat line of heart monitors. I've seen the exact moment the light leaves a person's eyes. I've watched the scales, the data, the monitors. There is no magic there, no ghosts, just biology failing. At least that's what I told myself to stay sane. But data can lie. And machines can remember things we've tried to bury. It started at 3:14 a.m. I was standing in the middle of a concrete parking lot. The air so cold it felt like needles in my lungs. My keys were clutched so tightly in my hand that the metal bit into my palm. I wasn't inside my car. I was 10 feet away from it. But the engine of my black sedan was roaring. Not a normal idle, but a strained mechanical scream, as if someone was flooring the gas pedal while the car was in park. The windows were completely opaque, coated in a thick, milky condensation that shouldn't exist in this weather. And then, through the sound of the engine, I heard it. A rhythmic, deliberate scratching. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Long fingernails dragging against the reinforced glass from the inside. Someone, or something, was locked in my backseat, trying to find a way out. And, according to my phone, that something weighed exactly 21 grams. Let's go back 3 days. That's when the world stopped making sense. I had just finished a double shift at the hospital. 36 hours of blood, adrenaline, and the smell of antiseptic. I took a taxi home because my hands were shaking too much to drive. As the taxi turned onto my street, my heart skipped a beat. There, sitting perfectly in my driveway, was my car, my black sedan. The same dent on the rear door from 3 years ago. The same nursing sticker peeling off the back window. The same license plate, 7BKL9. It was already there. I stood on the sidewalk, frozen. I pulled out my phone and opened the Find My Car app. The GPS tracker showed a bright red dot moving at 70 miles per hour on Highway 405, headed toward the coast. But I was looking at the car right in front of me. I walked up to it and touched the hood. It was ice cold. Dead. I looked through the driver's side window. The cabin was empty, but on the passenger seat, there was a small, bright yellow child's sun hat. I don't have children. I never did. At least that's what my medical records say. Then, the phone in my hand vibrated. A call from Self. My own number was calling me. I answered, but I didn't say anything. I couldn't. All I heard was the rhythmic click-clack. Click-clack of a car's turn signal. It sounded hollow, echoing as if it were being recorded in a cathedral. Then, a small, wet voice whispered into the receiver. "Mommy? Why is it so dark in the back? Did you forget to unlock the door again? It's getting hard to breathe, Mommy." I dropped the phone. When I looked back at the car, the yellow hat was gone. I became obsessed with the logs. Every smart car records its own history. Every weight sensor, every door opening, every mile driven. I spent the next 48 hours locked in my dark living room, scrolling through the screen recordings of the car's internal diagnostics. On Tuesday at 2 a.m., the internal cabin camera triggered. I watched the footage on my tablet. The car was parked in my locked garage. Total darkness. Then the infrared lights kicked in. The steering wheel began to move. It didn't just twitch, it turned with purpose. Left, right, centered. As if an invisible entity was practicing for a long journey. Then I checked the seat sensors. This is the part that still makes my skin crawl. The rear left seat registered a weight: 18 kilograms, a perfect steady weight of a young child. I watched the live data feed in the recording. 18 kilograms, then 22 kilograms. Then suddenly, the numbers began to spiral out of control. 40, 60, 100, 200 kilograms. The car's suspension hissed under the phantom weight. Then the screen turned a deep, bruised purple with a system error. Unknown mass detected. Contact manufacturer. I ran to the garage with a crowbar, my heart hammering against my ribs. I threw the door open, ready to confront a ghost or a killer. The garage was silent. The car was dark. But when I laid my hand on the roof, I screamed. The metal was white hot. It smelled like burning hair and ozone. The engine had been redlining for hours in total silence, yet the odometer hadn't moved a single inch. I opened the dashcam app on my phone to see where the car thought it was. The recording showed the last hour. My car was physically in a suburban garage in Portland, but the camera showed it driving through a dense, primeval forest. Giant pines blocked out the sky. The fog was so thick, it looked like gray smoke pouring over the hood. In the middle of the road stood a figure, tall, emaciated. Its limbs were elongated, bending at angles that no human joint could sustain. It wasn't blocking the car, it was waiting for it. The figure walked toward the camera, its face a blur of digital static. Just as it reached the glass, a long gray finger tapped on the lens. Tap, tap, tap. The exact same rhythm as the scratching I heard in the parking lot later. I went back through the purchase history. I bought this car 6 months ago from a woman in the Oregon backcountry. She was a widow, dressed in a gray wool coat that looked decades old. She sold it for $500, a car worth $30,000. My husband went away, she had said, her eyes fixed on a point somewhere behind my left ear. He's still waiting for the ride to end. He doesn't like being alone in the back. I thought she was senile. I thought I was getting the deal of a century. I remember getting into the driver's seat for the first time. The air inside felt heavy, like it was underwater. I adjusted the rearview mirror, and for a split second, I saw a flash of yellow in the back, a small hat. I spun around so fast I pulled a muscle in my neck. The seat was empty. As I drove away from her farmhouse, I looked in the mirror one last time. The woman wasn't on her porch anymore. She was sitting in the dirt in the middle of the road, her hands over her ears, her mouth wide open in a silent, jagged scream. She wasn't watching me leave. She was looking at the back seat of my car with absolute horror. I checked the vehicle history report again that night. I found a photo the insurance company had taken years prior. It was a picture of the trunk. In the chrome reflection of the bumper, if you zoom in 400%, you can see a small girl in a yellow hat standing by the rear door. But the widow had told me they never had children. The police report from the area mentioned a disappearance in that forest 10 years ago. A car found idling in a ditch, empty, and that brings us back to now, to this parking lot. My phone is burning in my hand. The Find My Car app is screaming. The two red dots, the car on the highway and the car in front of me, have finally merged. Overlap. The car's Bluetooth suddenly forced a connection to my phone. The speakers inside the sedan erupted into life. It wasn't music. It was an audio log from my own phone's cloud storage. A recording from 3 years ago. The day the doctors say I had the incident. The day they say I suffered a psychotic break due to grief. My own voice filled the parking lot, echoing off the concrete walls. Honey, please stop crying. Mommy's head hurts. Don't touch the door handle. The child locks are on for a reason. We're almost home. Just stay in your seat. Just stay. Then the sound of a mechanical failure, a tire blowing out, the sound of metal twisting like paper, the sound of water rushing into a cabin. The police told me I was alone in that car when it went off the bridge. They told me there was no daughter. They said the yellow hat I kept in my house was a relic from my own childhood, a transference object. But the sensor doesn't lie. 18 kilograms of pressure on the rear left seat. I walked toward the car. My legs felt like lead. I reached out and wiped the condensation from the driver's side window. The interior was empty. But there, sitting on the dashboard, was a phone. My phone. The one I lost in the accident 3 years ago. It was glowing. It was vibrating. It was calling the phone I held in my hand. The caller ID didn't say self anymore. It said, the owner. The soul weighs 21 grams. The car weighs 2 tons. And as the door locks clicked open with a heavy, final thud, I finally understood. I wasn't the nurse. I wasn't the survivor. I was just the cargo that had been missing for 3 years. I climbed into the driver's seat. The door locked itself behind me. Click. The GPS screen on the dash flickered to life. It didn't show a map. It just showed a single sentence in bright, clinical white text. Destination reached. The ride is over.